This week in post, taking a go with it attitude toward blown out skies. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Thanks for joining me in post. And thanks for all of your questions. It's been great hearing from all of you, different questions, all across the board. It's been a lot of fun, and I think I'm caught up. I think I've answered everybody. And I have been meaning to put together a Q&A episode, so I am working on that. And even if your question doesn't make it on the air, rest assured you're going to get a response, and you're going to get a response well before you see a response in YouTube, because I don't like to let those kinds of things linger. I want you to get the information that you've asked for as quickly as we can. So today, talking about blown out skies. So this is something that is quite common for landscape photographers. We get a sky that can potentially get blown out. We're dealing with shooting into the sun, or it's just, a difficult lighting situation. And there's a variety of things that we do to try to deal with that. Sometimes we'll use a neutral density filter or a graduated to bring the sky and darken it some. HDR is another approach, and do some blending in post. And for this image we're going to go through today, I actually just took a go with it type attitude and made the blown out sky not quite a feature, but certainly just amplified it and made it part of the overall image. So let's get into Lightroom and start and have a look. So here's this image straight out of the camera, and we can see that this area of the sky is very blown out. And I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to use that as part of the styling, and just it's okay. I'm going to just work with it as is. So let me turn back on the settings I've done. So it did some lens correction. You can see the perspective got fixed, and that really nicely straightened out the horizon. Adjusted the white balance, just let Lightroom do its thing with auto. Increase some contrast. Raised the shadows quite a bit. You can see before the foreground was quite dark, and it's because the camera is doing a lot of exposure for the sky. So this is very, very bright. And that's one of the reasons the foreground got dark. Otherwise, the exposure was quite good here. I got black and white points are there. A little bit of clipping. Press the J key. Expect clipping here. This is the hot spot in the photo, and that's cool. And I got a few black spots in the rocks, and this is actually on the shady side, so to speak, of the rock. And I like a little black in the photo itself. Touch clarity up a little bit to get some of these striations in the sand, some details in the rock, a little bit of vibrance, and a touch of saturation. This saturation really affects reds and oranges, and so it gets a nice little touch to these oranges in the clouds. And that is it for Lightroom. Well, actually, I think I also did some touch-ups. Let's see here. More than some. A bunch of little touch-ups for, small, there was very small white shells in a lot of the areas, and that was disrupting the nice, grayish and black sand that's here. But there are a couple you can see here and here. I haven't done those in Lightroom. They're a little bit large, and I'll use the tools in layers, just the clone stamp tool, to get those away, because there's some texture there I want to maintain. But what I really want to show you now is the stylization and how to just take this blown out sky and just, make it part of the overall style of the image. So let's get this over into effects. Here's the image from Lightroom, and starting off with my all-time favorite, dynamic contrast. And a very subtle contrast touch. Little nudge on the smalls and backed off the mediums and larges. Now this photo is all about the clouds and the reflection of them. Of course, this rock is a nice solid foreground element, and I want that to have some contrast and be sharp, but not over the top. I also masked the contrast away from the ocean and effectively the horizon line. Control M, you can see that mask. So this is a reflected gradient. Drop the bug in the middle and choose this reflected gradient shape. And so I can feather the mask out in either direction. In this case, to the up and down. And not at full strength, only masking away a little more than half of the contrast effect, because I want the clouds and the reflections to be the sharper things in the photo, and not so much in the horizon. So this is going to help reinforce this, above and below feel to this image. Now it's for color. Certainly want some more warmth into this, so I added a color enhancer to boost up the oranges. And so the filter noticed that there was some type of cast. It shifted things warmer, and that suits me just fine because I was going in the warmer direction anyway, so I'll just take that. And then I bumped the saturation up in the oranges and brought the brightness down just a little bit so that it didn't get too hot in some of these cloud areas. Now, yes, this is going to remain blown out, and it's even fuzzier and more blown out here, and that's okay. But these other areas where I want a good, nice orange tone, I don't want those to get too day glow or too hot. One more color enhancer, and this is for the greens that are in these mosses. Now, this is a subtle touch. And I hope you can see that. Let me toggle it off and on. So watch this area here in the rocks, and I said it's a subtle touch, but when you do notice it, there's a little pop of the greens there. There is some mosses on that rock there, and I wanted to bring those up a little bit. I started with, I'll actually use the green enhancer preset, which shifts yellow toward green, and it also increases the saturation of greens themselves. And I have a mask applied here, Control M. You can see that I'm not allowing any of the image other than the rock to receive that green enhance. I added a vignette. I usually close my images off with that. This is a subtle one. So again, we're darkening the edges here, further reinforcing this blowout. And I wanted to even go a step further. And so something I don't normally use, but is a lens flare. And so I added that at the very end. And that's really going to add a nice, you can see this part really brightens up. And so I've done quite a bit of, not quite a bit, I've done some masking on this. So I've dropped an edges shaped mask. And what that does is it removes the effect from the edges of the mask. So there is no lens flare happening here. There's a nice subtle or smooth fade, and then everything is applied in the centerpiece. So I'll Control M, you can see that mask and what it looks like. If my machine would catch up with me, there we go. So you can see this is where we have the lens flare effect, and then it fades off and it's not applied anywhere else. But that has the effect of blowing out this blown out area even more. So before on the lens flare and after, and just saying, this is what's going on in nature, and I'm going to go with that and use that to my advantage. So put all together, here is the before, and here's the after. Once I'd finished up in effects, I did take the image into Photoshop just to straighten out the pier at the far left edge. It was quite warped from the wide angle lens, and that didn't look natural at all. I did want that pier to stand up straight. I have a different video that shows the transform warp I've used on occasion in Photoshop, so I'll put a link to that and you can check that out as well to get the full view of how I came up with the final image. So the tip of the week is a blown out sky isn't something you always need to avoid. In this photo, I'd say that I embraced it and really made it, accentuated it for sure, just amplified it to make it part of the overall style of the image. And for photos where you're shooting into the sun, this is completely acceptable. It works really, really well, in fact, because it mimics nature. When we're outside in the real world, we look at the sun, we're not going to see detail. We're just going to see blown out areas in the sky. And so when we see that in a photo, our brains don't reject the blown out areas as feeling awkward or unnatural. That's it for this week in Post. Hope you've enjoyed it. Send in those questions. Love hearing from you. If you like the video, +1 comment, anything to let me know that this has been beneficial for you. You've gotten something out of these things. And then I'll be coming back again with more and more of them. That's what feeds the engines of this show. So until next time, my name is Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.